thank you for joining us for this webinar. This is a series of webinars which try to explore the key considerations to accelerate your instant payment transformation journey. And my name is Marie-Christine Diaz, Business Development Manager for Payments at Eastnets. And my focus today is to look at the access to instant payments. For this, it's a pleasure for me to welcome two experts from the European Central Bank and from SWIFT. And together, we will first provide you an update of the status and challenges on instant payments. And then we will look at the options and share with you some of the measures that our respective organizations put in place to help you accelerating the migration to instant payments. We have also set aside 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the session so that you can ask your questions. So please do not hesitate to interact with us. During the webinar, you can ask your questions through the Q&A button that you have on your Windows. Don't use the chat, use the Q&A. And then obviously, we will record the session. It's important that you know that we are recording the session, that we will publish that session, that record on the website, and we will also communicate to you in the current of the week the questions and the answers, including the link to the webinar, to the recording session. So let me first go through the introduction of my key colleagues. So it's a pleasure for me to first Fabrizio Dinacci. Fabrizio is the TIPS Evolution team leader at the European Central Bank. In the past, it has been covering positions in Banca d'Italia and the European Central Bank, and he has contributed to the preparation and the management of the operations of Target 2 and Target 2 for securities. In 2017, Fabrizio has joined the TIPS teams at the SEB, and is now actively contributing to all the major dossiers related to instant payment solutions at the Eurosystem. And just to remind you, TIPS means Target Instant Payment Settlement. So welcome, Fabrizio.
Thank you very much, Marie-Christine. If I may, just a little note here, a sort of disclaimer, before starting. It's important for me to say that I would like everybody to realize that there is no commercial relationship with Eastnets on my side, and all the views that are provided here are provided on a personal basis. I mean, I can only reflect my own thinking. I cannot commit the ECB in doing this, but once this is said, I'm ready really to have fun in the coming hour and a half.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Indeed, we value a lot your experience and expertise in this area. So, and then I would like to introduce Xavier Digam-Berardino. Xavier is product owner for Alliance Gateway Instant at SWIFT. And Xavier is a seasoned product manager, and he led over the last 12 years very critical industry programs at SWIFT. And I will mention a few of them: the KYC registry for the compliance, the SWIFT GPI and universal confirmations, the recent pre-validation, which is very important for instant payments, the transaction manager, the case management, and more recently, the SWIFTNet Instant Connectivity solution. So welcome, Xavier.
Thank you for having me in this webinar, Maria.
So first of all, let's set up the scene and let's define the key characteristics of instant payments, Fabrizio, so that we are all aligned on what it means for banks.
Indeed, Marie-Christine. So let's get started, and let's immediately say something that is important from my point of view, that is not only about instant payment. So of course, instant payment use some new, very specific channels for the clearing, the settlement, but it is also important to see that instant payments, at least on the side of the Eurosystem, are a piece of a puzzle. And the puzzle is including also other channels that are included in the target services. This being said, it is clear to everybody that while, for example, for an RTGS, it's important to have a good vision of the functional scope, because it's quite complex. For this, on the side of the instant payment, usually it is more the non-functional requirements that are more demanding compared to the functional ones. And here we see 5 dimensions that is important to recall. First of all, the speed. We know that the end-to-end transfer of funds need to happen more or less in 10 seconds. Actually, with tips, it happens within 100 milliseconds, but still for all the others, 10 seconds in some cases can be a bit challenging. In terms of availability, it's important that we go for a 24/7, 365 paradigm. On an RTGS, we usually are closed on the weekend. We might have sometimes, maybe not all the time, but still quite often, we have some closure of a few hours. This is not possible for instant payment, and that is something that also the banks have to think, because it's not just about every CSM, every clearing and settlement mechanism, but that is also for every bank. An important element is the element of the finality. In order to have finality, we need to have the central bank money playing a role. And here is, in a way, where a central banker like me feels particularly at ease. In TIPS, of course, we settle in central bank money, but TIPS also provides backup in central bank money to all the other CSMs that are providing the instant payment payments. Instant payments are guaranteed, and most importantly, they are irrevocable. As for the value, there is a lot of discussion about the fact that there is a limit to the transactions of the SCT Inst, that is the scheme used for instant payments for the euro. The scheme started with a limit of 15,000 euros. Now the limit has been raised to 100,000, as it is in the slide. We don't know whether this limit will resist or not, and for how long, but right now there is this limit. And last but not least, the reachability is a particularly important element for which even the Governing Council of the ECB has worked, so that we have the ability as CSMs to guarantee that we can reach all counterparties. So every PSP that is in TIPS can reach every other participant in the scheme, but that is also for other CSMs. So that is an element instant payment started without, and that was very critical to guarantee, but now thanks to the ECB Governing Council is a problem solved for the whole industry.
So what I can see is that indeed from these characteristics, the most important ones are certainly related to the underlying efficiency and all the non-functional requirements and service agreements that are to be provided by the plumbing, really the underlying infrastructure, correct? So let's not see a little bit why this journey is taking so much time. We have seen the evolution. It started in 2018. We know that we are not reaching a very large type of volumes today on instant payments in Europe. Can you help us to understand a little bit the evolution, the key milestones, and what has been done by the industry to foster a little bit the migration and accelerate it?
I'm very happy to see this graph, because this is one of the graphs that has been seen very often, but maybe also very often has been in a way misunderstood. So you see a graph that is growing, and it seems to be growing very nicely. So from 0.08 up to 16.82. What does this represent? This represents the share of instant payment compared to the total of the credit transfer volume. Should we be happy about this? Well, my reply might not be relevant. I am not happy about that, because I see that this is going too slowly. But most importantly, it was the European Commission that considered this to be really too slow. And that is why we are now confronted with a new piece of legislation that we will talk about in a while, that is trying to move the industry from the old paradigm to the new paradigm. The new paradigm being the instant payment. In a way, to use the words of a commissioner from Ireland, it is like moving from the old letters to the emails. No, it's really a change, total change of paradigm. It cannot happen immediately, But it cannot take so long. If you consider that the scheme started in 2017, I think, and now we are in 2024, and still we have not reached 20%. This is really not acceptable. So in addition to this, there is also a percentage, quite high percentage of banks that are compliant with the SEPA credit transfer, but they are not compliant with the SEPA credit transfer instantaneous. And that is why, in a way, you have organized this webinar to help those banks that are now in this situation. But this is clearly indicate why we need to accelerate, why these banks need to accelerate, but actually all the other banks need to accelerate, because also those who are compliant with the instant payment scheme are not doing enough. There is not necessarily a good level of conditions at which the service is provided, and indeed the moving from the old credit transfer to the new instantaneous version needs to go much faster than this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can see as well, if I remember well in our discussions, that a lot has been done already by creating a common underlying platform called eSMIC. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, SMIG is one of the difficult acronyms sometimes we need to work with. SMIG stands for Euro System Market Infrastructure Gateway, and it's a gateway, so it's a sort of a way to access, but to access what? To access the whole suite of the target services. So not only for tips, but also for target 2, now called T2 after the consolidation project went live, and T2S. In a way, it's something that makes the life of banks easier, because we have one single portal that opens really different doors, and so can bring synergy within the banks. But if I may, that is not the only how to say, the only measure. In a way, the whole story of the Eurosystem jumping into TIPS was not necessarily considered at the start, but that has been definitely something that has helped a lot. It has given the whole industry the whole, in a way, platform where instant payments are not only settled, but also are providing the reassurance to other providers that they can also offer on the basis of the support of the central bank money, as we were saying before. So, of course, if we go through the whole timeline, we have to start with the SCT Inst, but as you see, there have been a number of milestones, so the creation of the portal, the creation of TIPS, of course, the pan-European reachability that has been approved by the Governing Council. So all these elements have created a history, but the history have shown not to be sufficient, and that is why we have this graph that I'm very happy that you are showing now to our audience, because that clearly shows that a lot has been done, but still not enough.
All right. Understood. So it's the new norm. It's a lot about non-functional features, and we can see that the adoption by the industry is not enough, and that's why we need to see what the regulation is trying to push forward very recently in February. So maybe we can go through the different aspects of it. I'm starting with you, Fabrizio.
Very good. Still, this is something that, of course, is very new, still has to enter into force, but it's coming, and it's important that all of us, including CSMs like TIPS, but of course the banks and other actors are doing a lot to make it happen. What needs to happen, really? So a number of things. Let's go one by one. We have the first point here about the channel. So instant processing of payments shall be offered across all channels. It's important because I can send 10 euros maybe to Marie-Christine with my mobile application, but why should I be confined to the mobile application? I need that whatever is the way I would like to send 10 euros to Marie-Christine, my bank needs to give me the possibility to do it with an instant way. Even if I go to the the branch in my city, I should be able to fill a paper form, but then when it is submitted, it should be able to go via instant. That is important. Banks have to realize this will require attention. This will require work, but cannot be postponed anymore. Then we have the fraud fight. Everybody seems to be very scared, and not without a reason, because instant payments seem to attract quite a bit of frauds and all sort of new schemes, not the scheme like the SCT-INS, but the scheme for scamming people. For this, the European Commission has decided that there is an obligation for PSP to offer a verification of pay service, because in the end, if I am convinced to pay to Marie-Christine, but actually I put the IBAN in the form that is the IBAN of Xavier, even if I write Marie-Christine, the money goes to Xavier. So clearly the user needs to be informed whether there is some, mismatch between the name of the intended beneficiary and the IBAN that I am including there. And this is really something that in the countries where it has been already provided as a service has reduced the number of frauds quite greatly. So looking forward to see how this is going to work all over the euro area. Screening is also a very important element. Well, we know what is happening in the world, not too far from us. There is the invasion of Ukraine, and that has created the need for quite a bit of EU sanctions. But we, of course, when there is a new sanction, there needs to be also the verification for the industry that these sanctions are checked against. And now the screening has been in a way facilitated by the instant payment regulation, because instead of having the need to do it every single payment, we can do it on a daily basis. So of course, if there is something new, it has to be immediately included in the software and the systems of all the actors that are involved. But otherwise, the verification only on a daily basis is a great help to the industry. Now, on the side of the compliance that is very close to the ones to one of screening, it's important to say that there is the obligation to report on the sanctions rejection rate every 12 months, but this is something that in a way does not particularly change for the, let's say, day by day or even instant by instant activity of banks. There is something that is very important, even to me as a user, as a citizen in the euro area, and it's about the charges. I am the customer of a bank, of course I will not mention, but I have to pay a surcharge if I want to send a payment as an instant payment compared to the old credit transfer. This cannot be accepted. The European Commission has made it very clear that there is an obligation to offer instant payments without any extra cost. We have to understand collectively that instant payments are not a premium. They are becoming the normal way of working. And for this, we have to learn this quickly and act also quickly. Mm-hmm. This is, for me, we have put it as a last point, but it's maybe one of the main points here, because it is going to help the penetration of instant payment in the market very greatly.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Fabrizio. That's very clear on the regulations. And so maybe on your side, Xavier, what do you see as kind of impact on financial institutions, this new regulation? What are the things that you see for your customers?
Mm-hmm. So from a financial institutions perspective, these measures will not only help enhancing the overall customer experience with instant funds availability, they will also reduce the rate of incorrect and rejected payments and the subsequent costs and burdens associated with the investigation of fraud cases. And obviously, they also pave the way, as Fabrizio mentioned, to a whole new range of 24/7 services for firms and citizens.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, that's what we see as well. So with our customers, we understand that moving to new digital services implies a lot of fraud, which are higher than before. So we understand that financial institutions need to do much more checks on the processing to understand whether there is some fraud, and they have to react very quickly within a few seconds. That's the first impact that we see operationally on the flows. The second impact on the screening, because I agree that the European Council has tried to minimize the impact of screening transactions in so limited time. But at the other end, the banks and financial institutions need still to check sanctions against other lists. So this is still an area where it's not very clear how the banks will have to implement this new regulation, and there are still a lot of questions in the market about it. But definitely, we see that the regulation is trying to push for a better adoption of instant payments.
Marie-Christine, if I may,
Yes.
just one last point. The
Yes.
point on charges, along with all the, all the deadlines that are in the instant payments regulation, is clearly indicating one thing to the whole industry. Instant payments is about survival. So banks that are not really ready to do it in time are going to be really the sort of the pariah of the PSP. So nobody wants to be in that situation. So it's important that we stress the urgency of starting to work on this, because when also the charges will be removed as an incentive to go for the old system, every user will make use of the new possibility, and banks that are not going to provide in an efficient way the new paradigm will be automatically really in a very bad situation, very bad condition.
So nobody wants to be in that case, and
Exactly.
everybody would like to go for offering the service. And I'm sure that from a consumer perspective and even a corporate perspective, that will be the new norm, and it's going to be affecting our lives in the future. So I'm very sure that's going to be very well accepted if there is no friction. Obviously, if all the challenges about fraud, the challenges about sanction screening are correctly implemented. So that's key things. Let's now look a little bit at the timelines, because we know that the regulation has been accepted. So maybe you can help us to understand a little bit what does it mean practically in terms of roadmap and the deadlines.
Yes, let's look at this because it is very essential. First of all, we should say that the final text of the regulation has been approved by the European Parliament in February, so very recently, but we have to wait that there is the publication in the EU official journey, and then even when that happens, it should happen in March, unless there is some delay, but I hope that March will be sufficient. In any case, when that happens, there will be still other 20 days that will have to pass, I think, for translation in all the languages of the European Union. I mean, there are a number of things that still have to happen in a formal, let's say, according to the formal process. And then finally, this will enter into force. This regulation will enter into force. There will be a number of major deadlines, but I think that two are particularly relevant. I would like to spend a few seconds on them. One is that in November, December, in a way, all banks that are compliant and are providing services of SCT nature, so SEPA, credit transfer nature, will have to be able at least to receive the instant payment. So you don't have necessarily to send yet, but you have to be able to receive. But let's be honest, that is already where the big part of the difficulty is, because receiving an instant payment is quite complicated. You have to be able to receive the transaction and to approve it according to the scheme. And that has to be done in a matter of a few seconds. So it implies that there is already a great, in a way, and seamless working of all the backend systems in the banks. Then, not only that, they will have to have in place all the sanction screening. And if I may, I know that I already said that, but that will already be the moment in time when no surcharge will be legal any longer. but that is only the first of the two major deadlines. There is the second one that is around 9 months later, so it should be September 2025, maybe October. At that point in time, the PSPs will have to be able also to send instant payments, and that will be, in a way, conclude the transition, because that will be completing, first of all, the both channels for the banks. But in addition to that, they will have to be already able to offer to their client the VOP service, the famous verification of payee, so the matching between the name of the intended beneficiary and the IBAN. Of course, there are other, other deadlines. There are some that are still even to be clarified by the European Commission. I know that the European Commission has taken a very important initiative vis-à-vis the market, so that they are going to provide some clarification in the coming weeks to the questions that the market is going to send to them. So, of course, it's important to stay tuned on this additional element, but at least already these two major milestones need to be clear in the mind of whoever is listening to us today. There is really no time to waste if you consider that the first is in November, December this year, the first of the deadlines, and the second already in September, October next year.
Mm-hmm. And I guess there are also some timelines for non-Eurozone participants, correct?
Absolutely, that is correct. They are a little bit, more relaxed, because, of course, this is primarily something that has been worked out for the Euro market. But, of course, this applies to the European Union, so it applies also to non-Euro market. And we know very well at TIPS, because we are having a number of these markets that are onboarding on our platform to make sure that they are getting closer and closer also to the Euro area. For maybe one day we are trying to see whether we can make it happen, having cross-currency payments on our platform. I think it's something that would serve all the needs of the users all over the EU, but of course, still a little bit needs to be done. But you're totally right. The provisions of the IPR apply not only to the Euro PSPs, but also to the non-Euro PSPs of the EU.
All right, that's very clear. So that's going to push the industry into the right direction. And I understand also from the industry perspective, Xavier, there are a lot of things going on as well to accelerate the time for doing a payment on the cross-border side. Can you just explain to us a little bit what are these initiatives?
Sure thing. So on top of the regulation Fabrizio just explained, there is another breakthrough instant payment transformation that took place in Europe. And more precisely, on the 28th of November 2023, the European Payment Council One Leg Out Instant Credit Transfer, also called as the OCT-INT scheme, went live. And this scheme enables payments to or from Europe to be instantly processed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long. So it also means that cross-border payments which are leaving or that are coming to Europe can reach the beneficiaries within seconds through seamless connection with the instant domestic payment systems with full transparency and end-to-end tracking capabilities powered by SWIFT. And I must say that we are quite excited with this OCT-INT scheme, as it should be seen as a unique opportunity to leverage the benefits of domestic instant payment systems globally while using the existing rails. And you know what we say, the best innovation is often the results of cross-industry collaboration. And I must say that while the OCT-INT go live follow that example very well, as well, it follows on a successful proof of concept in which SWIFT collaborated very tightly with Iberpay, so the Spanish instant payment system, the Spanish banking community, and commercial banks from Australia, Brazil, and the United Kingdom, with the dozens of international payments successfully reaching Spanish accounts within seconds. So interlinking market infrastructures in this way is a key method for us by which to achieve the G20 goals for cross-border payments around speed, transparency, cost, and access.
Thank you, Xavier. So I see that both the regulatory and the industry goes in the same direction. And obviously, there is another aspect as well to consider in this roadmap is all the efforts that the European Commission is doing as well to protect the financial institutions and to protect consumers. And this is specifically happening next to the fraud regulation that is coming with instant payment, with the verification of IBAN and name. It's also related to the infrastructure itself. So there's a lot of effort which is being done today under the Digital Operational Resiliency Act, the DORA Act by the European Commission. That act has been entered into force in January last year, 2023. And there is an important deadline for financial institutions as well to comply with these DORA regulations, which is going to strengthen IT security for the financial sector and more specifically for cyber attacks and incidents where digital operations is really important. And it's affecting everybody, not only financial institutions, but also software providers. So I think there is a very long list of activities that financial institutions and payment service providers would need to take into account this year and early next year to prepare for this new scheme of instant payment. So let's now summarize a little bit all these different aspects. So as we can see, and I think Fabrizio has been very clear, there is no additional fees that a bank can charge for an instant payment. So there is no direct revenue from this new innovation, but there's definitely a various number of options that the European Commission, but also the industry need to develop around instant payments. So these are all the value-added services that can help consumers, but also corporates to innovate into doing the payments. And that's include very simple things like the integration with marketplaces, e-commerce marketplaces, integration with invoices, electronic invoices, in a way that it's really frictionless for the end user. And so for what we can see as well is that this regulation is imposing a serious number of additional costs that were not foreseen by financial institutions. That includes review the entire processing of payments, make it much more faster, much more optimized, adapt these to cope with all the different schemes, whether these are schemes for the European payments, but also for cross-border payments. So you need to manage flows for different types of schemes. The banks will need to check and revisit everything which is related to fraud, making sure that all the fraud controls are being done instantaneously on the process. Implement the IBAN name check. That means also potentially integrate with different types of data providers. So this is still questions there, and additional cost and setup that needs to be done from an operational perspective. Also looking at the liabilities of offering this kind of service. And definitely adapt the existing compliance processes, whether it's sanction screening or AML, in order to meet these new requirements. So that means that though all these schemes reuse a common infrastructure, which is reuses ISO 20022 and SEPA in general, because the market is ready with that, there's still a lot of things that needs to be done to make these processes frictionless and being able to accommodate the SLAs. And the most important part is that in the past, these processes had a very high level of automation and straight-through processing. So introducing all these changes in the process may indeed have an impact on this automation. And that's something that the banks needs to look at, to contain the cost of change, to look at the different types of tools that they can use to minimize the impact of implementing instant payments. So as I can see from what we have discussed earlier, Fabrizio and Xavier, basically what we can see is that there is not anymore the question of if and even when, but the question is to understand now how much and how fast are we going to launch these instant payments within the banks. And so I would like to focus first on the costing side of it, and then we will look a little bit at the measures that we are implementing in our organizations to support the implementation. But let's now look at the costing of this change and what are our different organizations doing. So let's first start with you, Fabrizio. What is the ECB action in terms of a cost proposal and cost containment? Sorry.
That's a very, very important question, Marie-Christine. First of all, it's the ECB, but it's not only the ECB, it's the whole Euro system. So the ECB plus all the central banks that are in the Euro area and are, of course, maintaining and operating TIPS. We are definitely all aware that all what you have said is really costly, and it's going to be a little bit tough maybe on the short term. So a lot of effort has been put on trying to contain the cost for the market coming to TIPS. And I think that it's important to note that the Governing Council has recently revised the pricing scheme of TIPS, but still trying to keep it at a reasonable level. So maybe it's important to remember which are the main element of the cost or the pricing, let's say, of TIPS. We know that an account in TIPS is not charged for the opening, so we charge exactly 0 for opening an account. But then once it is open, there is a maintenance fee that is only 800 euros a month. And for banks that are participating, making use of the account of another institution, because you might access TIPS not only as a TIPS participant with your own account, but also as we would call it AAU, authorized account user. In a way, you would be sort of a reachable party in TIPS, that it's only costing 20 euros a month. So really, I cannot imagine that it could cost any less. In addition, for every instant payments that you send, you would have to pay 0.001 euro. I think that the amount is definitely low. Of course, you would have to pay the same amount also in case you receive a payment, so still 0.001. That is something that I think should help all banks. Of course, I would invite banks to compare this with every other. I mean, I can imagine that there are other CSMs and they are very good at providing the service. They might have other conditions. So good, of course, to compare, but I would really say that it's important to realize that the Eurosystem has made really an effort. You know that TIPS alone could be a solution that covers all the needs of a PSP. So, of course, we would never limit the freedom of PSP to participate in 3, 4, 5, 6 different CSMs, but one is sufficient. And with this level of pricing, I think that Eurosystem gives quite of a contribution to make this possible. I'm not going to say that it's going to be easy necessarily, because it's quite a bit of work, but at least for the financial equation of it, I think that we are really trying our best to make it possible.
Mm-hmm. So on the long run, definitely, it's a very attractive value proposition. So let's now look at what SWIFT is doing. SWIFT as a community company, which is a cooperative, which serves the financial industry. Definitely, we have been working very hard on the ISMIC project. So Xavier, can you explain to us in details what are the actions and measures that SWIFT is taking to reduce the cost of adoption for instant payments over SWIFT?
Sure. So first thing first, and Fabrizio highlighted previously the various angles from the new IPR instant payment regulation. And the good thing is that SWIFT is already proposing powerful solutions to its member to smoothly and timely comply with every aspect of the new regulation. So look at our pre-validation service that we are connecting as we speak with a domestic confirmation of pay schemes, which enables our members to check beneficiary details before a payment is even initiated and effectively tackle payments fraud while guaranteeing, first-time right payment processing approach. And obviously, there are our instant SWIFTNet Instant Messaging service and an Alliance Gateway Instant, so AGI connectivity solutions that enable payment system participants, PSPs, to instantly exchange payments throughout SWIFT. So let me now double-click on our SWIFTNet Instant and AGI capabilities. So thanks to them, financial institutions can truly benefit from a highly resilient 24/7, 365 infrastructure. We mentioned that instant payment capabilities needs to be available constantly. That's something we're proposing with AGI. It's ensuring interrupted services, and our customers will be able to deploy the AGIs in a very seamless manner, as they can leverage their current SWIFT infrastructure, including their VPN boxes, their lease line, and their hardware security modules, their HSM boxes.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, SWIFT members will also have the assurance to rely on a trusted partner, which knows their business and that is very well positioned to best assist them with the implementation of powerful solutions to offer their own clients a best-in-class instant payment experience. Then AGI also enable PSPs to instantly exchange payments in a trusted, safe, robust manner, as I already explained, but also in a CSP compliant ecosystem. So your institution can leverage all the security best practices that have been established in the context of the customer security program from SWIFT. In terms of performance, AGI has been designed to meet the most stringent performance SLAs inherent to instant payments and ensures that the message signature between the HSM and the AGI in less than 30 milliseconds and the exchange between two AGIs in less than 250 milliseconds. And the last thing I would like to outline in the graphic here is that, well, from a customer perspective, AGI means a new footprint, as you can see in green, which can be deployed in different ways. Customers may opt for an AGI that would be released within their own premises, or at one of our qualified public cloud providers, or rely on an AGI implemented at a SWIFT-certified service bureau.
Okay, so I see that reducing the cost has always been very high in the agenda of SWIFT, basically, and I'm quite sure that you're looking at cloud functionalities as well and collaborate with hosted solutions like Eastnets. So what would be the benefits, in fact, that you can see and the value proposition for Alliance Gateway Instant?
Indeed. So, well, if we summarize the AGI value proposition, those would be the key features I would like to point out. First of all, constant availability. So money can be transferred at any time of the day, all year long. And this thanks to a very solid, resilient architecture that guarantees zero downtime. Then, well, instant processing with extremely low latency. I mentioned previously that the network round-trip latency between AGI and each of the HSM box is guaranteed and processed in less than 30 milliseconds, and the AGI to AGI processing time is executed in less than 250 milliseconds. AGI also caters for multiple CSMs and can work in parallel with multiple back offices. AGI actually has been designed to provide customers with a single gateway approach to seamlessly connect to multiple instant payment services in Europe and beyond. And this interoperability ultimately ensures bespoke connection to each system will not be needed, as AGI secures a streamlined and central access to numerous instant payment systems such as TIPS, RT1, and Buna. So a single AGI will enable your institution to connect to all those CSMs. And you can connect your AGI with multiple of your back offices, and this via MQ or via an API integration. The fourth point I would like to outline is that AGI relies on a set of very powerful capabilities. So AGI is a future-proof gateway operating, as you mentioned, Marie-Christine, on a common industry standard, ISO 20022 messages. AGI can be configured in such a way that you can decide to route your instant payment traffic based on various criteria, such as, for example, the sender, the receiver, BIC, or the message type. AGI can also be integrated with a central monitoring tool so that any abnormal events or alarms can be immediately detected and subsequently properly and timely handled. And AGI is also multi-tenant, so this means that the same AGI instance can be leveraged to process the instant payment traffic of various entities of your banking group. And finally, and as I said multiple times during the call, but let me state it once more time, as this is fully part of our DNA, AGI is trusted, secure, and resilient. So you will have the reassurance of working with known, secure, resilient, and trusted processes, which guarantee instant interbank settlement in an effective fashion. AGI has also built-in non-repudiation capabilities, which authenticates the identity of a user who performed the transaction and ensure the integrity of that transaction. And finally, thanks to its lean architecture, AGI enables you to minimize the setup and operating costs while reducing the time to market and enabling simple integration of value-added services, which are critical to make the most out of this new regulation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Xavier. So it's very clear on the value proposition. It's a lot about functionality that helps to integrate very quickly and definitely very high resilient and secure infrastructure. And that's why at Eastnet, we have selected AGI for our service bureau. So when when we have to deploy these kind of solutions, typically, whether it's on premises or in the cloud, it will depend a lot of the volumes, but not only. So typically, what we witness at Eastnet for more than 20 years of experience is that, and over time, the service bureau offering is dedicated for very low traffic volumes, typically customers that have less than 1,000 transactions on the cross-border side. And this is a no-brainer. Almost 90% of the cloud-based services that they connect to SWIFT over our service bureau, whether it's in the United Arab Emirates, which was our first service bureau in the Middle East for SWIFT, but also in the United States and even in Europe today. Typically, these institutions connect to a service bureau offering because it helps them to reduce their ongoing operating cost. At the same time, they use typically shared services in service bureau, which are not necessarily related only to the connectivity, but also to other Eastnet services like compliance, transaction processing, warehousing, and archiving. So definitely these service bureau offering matches very well the demand for very small customers. And at Eastnet, we have really an offering which is global that can back up from one side to another across the regions. Now, what comes with instant payments, we have seen that the latency, the performance, and also the privacy is quite important. So having the connectivity to instant gateway within Europe is a very essential step forward that we have decided to take at Eastnet to comply with these non-functional SLAs. That's why we, next to the existing service bureau, where we host already the SWIFT type of interfaces to the traditional banks and AMIs and also market infrastructure like Target 2 and Step 2. Next to it, we are now extending the service that we offer in Europe to another connectivity, which is the Alliance Gateway Instant. And we are going to deploy a second site to make sure that we offer the full resiliency to the instant payment service, which is really needed at this point in time. What we can see as well is the trends over years, and certainly these few years. It's not only the smaller banks that are interested by shared services and cloud services, but also mid-sized customers. These mid-sized customers, they look at outsourcing their operations because even if they are critical, they still believe that this is not their core business. And they don't want to have to deal with many changes in terms of technology. That's why they opt for services through a certified service bureau like Eastnet. In some cases, these institutions are lacking expertise in-house in terms of security and technical integration capabilities, but they face also issues to acquire the right talents. And this is more specifically to Europe, where there is a continuous shortage in engineering talents and more specifically in security experts. A recent KPMG report has shown indeed that there is a shortage of engineers, which is exacerbated by the low historical low unemployment rate, the shrinking of immigration, the aging workforce, and also a declining interest in these studies. So at the end, in Europe, it creates a real spiral of wages increases that is impacting the operating costs for financial institutions and payment service providers, and ultimately the profitability of these companies. So in addition to that, we have seen many security threats where we go to digital transformation. That is a standard here in Europe. We see that much more. So financial institutions need to invest a lot as well in creating the right environment, security environment, resilience, and the framework that helps them to operate these services in a very secure and resilient way. And this is where Eastnet as a service bureau can offer a value-added services because we can do a lot of these security framework checks and validations on behalf of the customers. This is our DNA, the security and resiliencies. We have more than 200 experts with very high level certification, and we have an experience over a track record of more than 200 customers in the service bureau. So building on this lasting expertise, we have extended this private service cloud service to offer these two sites in Luxembourg, and we are also contemplating a way to reduce additionally the cost for our customers by opting for a public cloud deployment as well. So at the end, our objective is really to make sure that the SLAs in terms of security and also the support is being respected, and also with this deployment in Europe to comply with the GDPR regulation in terms of privacy for financial instructions. So all the data keeps within the European boundaries. So what does it mean in terms of deployment? So in the two different service bureaus, as Xavier explained, our objective is to reuse the existing VPN boxes and also increase the lines that we have for the existing service. And we can, because we can reuse and leverage these existing components, we can definitely reduce the cost for our end users. In terms of integration, it's very easy. We have been looking at MQ, Active MQ, and APIs. We support both of them. We have integration people that can help the banks to do this kind of integration in a very seamless way. And obviously, we are trained to have a project framework that can help to execute the integration in a few months. So at the end, banks may also decide to outsource some of their functionality to make sure that they can meet the deadlines. For instance, to prepare the ISO 2022 messages, we can offer these services as well to prepare the messages, transform and read the messages the more effectively way to TIPS or even RT1 through these infrastructures. What we can say in a very summary way is that at the end, our benefits for our instant payment access as a service, whether it's a private cloud or in the public cloud, objective is to reduce the total cost of ownership. And by cost of ownership is not only the cost of the licensing of AGI, the cost of the hardware for the VPN boxes and the HSMs, but it's much more the operations of these infrastructure, the people that you need to put in place at two different sites to make sure that it is resilient. The other aspect, which is very, very important, is the scalability. You may end up today by having very few volumes that you want to push on instant payment, and growing in terms of capacity the other traditional credit transfers over time. And we are able to give you the capacity that you need on demand as your business growth, as the volumes growth. The time to market is quite important. Because we have all this experience into running Swift infrastructure, it's very simple setup that we need to do on the gateway, very little configuration, and the project itself is a couple of months to be connected to the SWIFT AGI. And the other aspect that we should not neglect is everything which is related to security compliance and resiliency. You have seen that all the security aspects and the controls of the customer security program are imposing more work and more audits on each financial institution. This is also something that we can do on behalf of the financial institutions and comply with all the security aspects. And finally, because we have a global infrastructure, we can support you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365. That's the typical operations that we offer today with our SWIFT users, but also for our financial institutions using our Eastnet services as well in the service bureau. So at the end, this option could help you to accelerate your migration to instant payments. And what we offer you is a peace of mind, basically, just to take care about your business, making sure you can run out instant payments on your back office application, payment application, and we take care of everything which is related to connectivity. So let's now look at what are our three organizations doing to accelerate the implementation. And I will start with you, Fabrizio, on the European Central Bank. What are you exactly offering to help the banks to accelerate the implementation?
Oh, quite a lot. If you have a couple of hours, I will go through them. No, it's a joke, of course. I will be much shorter. No, but we are really offering quite a lot. First of all, we are offering the #1 settlement engine in Europe for instant payments. We are already now at over 100 million instant payments per month, and we are growing really very nicely. And so the idea that you come to the settlement engine that has proven to be the #1 for sure has already an impact. But if I may, if there are double digit of countries that I cannot mention, of course, for confidentiality reason, but there is more than 10 countries that are trying to get into TIPS, not connected, not a bilateral link. No, they would like to get into TIPS to settle their instant payments with TIPS. I mean, it tells you something. It tells you something in terms of the quality of the service that they expect and know that the Eurosystem can provide. Of course, the real-time settlement in central bank money is an essential part of our offer. We really settle in central bank money. That's the real thing. It's not just the support to the commercial bank money settlement. It is really the real thing. Then there is the pan-European reachability, and that is an element that I would like to stress a little bit, because for many banks, it's even an obligation to be in TIPS. You know that if you are reachable in T2 and you are compliant with the SCT Inst scheme, de facto you are obliged to be reachable in TIPS. So before starting to consider complicated ways to implement a network, maybe of participating in a network of different arrangements, you know that TIPS does the job. It does as well as nobody else, and it's sufficient for you. But on top of this, we are offering a state-of-the-art technology. Marie-Christine, I would like to have a little bit of a joke with you. I have seen that during this webinar, you have sometimes blinked your eyes. Is it correct?
Yes, indeed.
Do you
Many
know
times.
what? Do you know what? In the blink of an eye, TIPS is completing the whole end-to-end processing of more than one instant payment in just one blink of an eye. We are the only service that has 3 different sides so that we can provide the highest level of resilience, the highest level of performance. The performance does not just come from the resilience, but also, as I said, with the speed of processing. Someone might have had the experience, unfortunately it was not my experience, but someone has played tennis with Novak Djokovic, the legend of tennis. And you know, Novak Djokovic has an incredibly fast service. However, the time for settling instant payments of TIPS is faster than the time that the ball takes to leave the the racket of Djokovic and to reach you on the other side. In a way, it's easier to beat Djokovic than to beat tips in terms of performance, in terms of resilience, in terms of everything that a bank can hope to find. Also, of course, in terms of reachability. And last but not least, of course, there is a cost-effective solution. We have shown that our services are very reasonably priced. Of course, banks are free to choose whatever solution, and that is their prerogative. But it's important for us to be in peace with our conscience, to have done whatever the banks would have appreciated to cut their time and to jump into the new normal. I would like just to take an additional moment, if I may, Marie-Christine, to say that we as Eurosystem are accompanying all the participants through all of their journey towards the instant payments. We have also a set of test case that we are also asking our expected participants to perform, so that we can in a way release sort of a tip certificate so that banks can then start using their platform. There is a lot of material that we publish. I think that there is no other CSM that is as transparent as TIPS is on not only the pricing, but also the functional scope, all the technical details. There is nothing that we hide to all the citizens of the European Union. So of course, nothing that we hide also to banks. We are not afraid of publishing everything. And last but not least, if the country of Sweden has come now to TIPS with their market, and we know how advanced Sweden is, it's not a matter of pride. I'm not proud of just doing my job. It's just doing my job. I am honored from the fact that the Swedish community is now settling on TIPS with their incredible volume. So if they are coming to TIPS and not somewhere else, maybe there is a good reason.
All right, thank you, Fabrizio. Indeed, thank you for this clarification, and definitely we see that we are very proud on your business, definitely. So let's look at SWIFT. What are the things that you see that you can put in place to help the customers to join your infrastructure?
Mm-hmm. So, well, when joining AGI, customers can rely on a pool of dedicated experts to assist them with their Swift instant payment onboarding process. And during that onboarding phase, users will notably benefit from the guidance of our consultants regarding the most relevant AGI implementation, approach to cater for their volume, their performance, security, resiliency requirements, but also to make sure that their constraints are properly taken into consideration. Once the appropriate number of AGI instances will be ordered, AGI customers will then receive assistance on how to properly implement, configure, test their instant gateway, and prepare for the go live activation. And obviously, AGI users will be able to rely on Swift support teams and our product delivery champions to assist them should they have any queries while operating our solution and or raising any requirements, any inquiries they might have to further optimize the usage of AGI.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Xavier. And so from a hosting perspective, when the customers decide not to go for an on-premises AGI, but to host the services with Eastnets, definitely once the institution have been registered on TIPS and that they have acquired the big codes from accessing the SWIFTNet instant messaging, as explained by Xavier, obviously, the setup on the cloud services is very simple. It takes elapsed time 15 weeks for the project perspective in average, but that's really the maximum. In practice, the configuration on AGI is very simple. The routing setup is very simple, and the infrastructure is available. So it's just a matter of integrating with the back office applications. For this integration, we have experts and projects, as I mentioned earlier. The experts can do an integration with APIs or MQ, active MQ, And in addition to that, we have a segregated environment for testing. So it's a kind of sandbox where the customers can test their integration in a closed loop without any kind of integration with TIPS or even SWIFT. They can test their integration and we can help them for that. Obviously, this environment is segregated from the business environment, and we can help the customers to migrate from the testing environment into more production and piloting environment. Um, Based on that, the customers may also do business continuity testing and regression testing in terms of volumes and ensure that the load balancing at the level of the application is working properly. So we can assist them as well in that area. And finally, what we do is all the controls and audits that are required by ISO 27001 and also the APEX SOC 1 Type 2, and including the SWIFT certification for the CSP program as a shared infrastructure, which has been certified. So this is a little bit what Eastnets is offering to the community based on the experience that we have in this market. And we are very proud to be able to deploy this kind of service in Europe and being relevant in Europe. Obviously, this setup could only work if there is a very nice collaboration with SWIFT in terms of incident management, escalation, and investigation. And in the same way, SWIFT has a collaboration with the European Central Bank in order to make sure that we can quickly respond to support requests or incidents that are coming in this kind of infrastructure, whether it's at the time we do the testing or even afterwards during full operations. So let's now look at what is next once this implementation is doing. So Fabrizio, what are the key topics that you can see going forward in 2024?
Well, here, of course, the slide didn't have a lot of space for all of us. I mean, not only for TIPS, also for SWIFT and Eastnet. So I think that all of us had to make an effort in a way to synthesize, but still some important elements are here to be recalled. First of all, there is the migration to the 2019 version of the ISO 20022 messages. Actually, this should have already taken place, but there was a postponement. Some actor in the market was probably not ready in November. So in any case, it's going to happen very soon this month, actually in the next weekend. Mm-hmm. Another element is the onboarding of Swedish and Danish markets. So I was already mentioning before Sweden, but still Sweden is quite of a new galaxy for us. It has already started settling on TIPS, but other products are going to come also for the use of the Swedish community. And so we are really looking forward to see even more from the Swedish market. But at the same time, we are getting ready to have, and it should be in the first half of next year, also the Danish market coming to TIPS, and they are going to make use not only of the TIPS services, but also other services of the target suite. Of course, you might be already aware of the fact that the Danish market already is making use of T2S security. So in a way, they are completing the whole suite of the target services. We are absolutely honored by this as well. And as I said, unfortunately, I cannot mention the other many other markets that are coming to TIPS. And unfortunately, they are making our days quite complicated, but very rich, very exciting. The last element that I would like to mention resonates with what Xavier said a few slides ago, and it's about the implementation of the OCT Inst also on the TIPS platform. We are going for a phased implementation because, let's be honest, of course, when you have to onboard Sweden, Denmark, you have also to adapt your systems in a way. So there are a lot of different kind of things that we have to do on our platform. So we are taking it a little bit easier. So we are going to start in November, but we are going to complete the implementation in the next year. But still, this is something that will open TIPS to the rest of the world. And that, I think, is enough for the three little points. It's important to stress TIPS will remain the backbone of instant payment infrastructure in Europe. It's something that most banks have to get used to because it's there to remain. All the rest is optional. Tips for many participants is mandatory. So the sooner the adaptation to tips, the better, I think, for all of us.
Thank you, Fabrice. I see that you will be still passionate in 2024 on all the things that you need to deliver. So let's now look at Swift. What is going to be your passion in 2024, Xavier?
So I think we said it multiple times throughout the discussions, but instant is becoming the new default, the new normal. And for us, assisting our members to timely and qualitatively adhere to the instant payments regulation will be paramount to us. So to this extent, we plan to collaborate with our members, our partners, with market infrastructures to best assess how instant payments product suites that we have could further evolve. And there, well, we'd like to see how could those be lightened even more to simplify the setup, operation, maintenance of our instant payment connectivity solution for an even lower TCO, an overall greater customer experience, and ultimately reach a fostered instant payments adoption. And in the same vein, we also want to expand collaboration with service providers and service bureaus to increase the penetration of the market and best assess our community complying with a new regulation that is coming. First of all, market consultations will be also conducted to further evolve our instant payment gateway and guarantee instant payments can be smartly processed, centrally orchestrated, nicely stored, and properly traced. We also want to keep our instant payment solutions as simple and as user-friendly as possible to fast run time to market and optimize the usability. And well, the third point that I would like to also outline that we want to unlock instant payments across borders to help interlinking instant payments systems. SWIFT has been doing that over the last 50 years, and we want to continue to leverage on our unique experience to solve today's challenges. And ensuring that instant payment system can seamlessly interoperate is critical for us to achieve on our strategy of instant frictionless payments for all. As well, and I mentioned that previously as well as meeting the G20 goals for cross-border payments. And to this end, we are supporting interoperability innovation worldwide. Previously mentioned the role SWIFT played in the Indo-OCT scheme to deliver these 24/7 instant payments across borders, but also currency zones.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Xavier. So I understand that this is a future-proof infrastructure, definitely that you are looking for to last for a long time. So at Eastnets, we are embarking in this journey as well. Maybe a little bit late, I would say, but still, I think there is still a potential for us to really be relevant in this market, definitely because of our expertise in global operations of SWIFT connectivity. So we are launching this year the instant access as a service in Europe. These production centers will be located in Luxembourg, and we have already have a consultation with the regulator in Luxembourg, which has no objection on the model that we are extending, because we are just extending a model, an operating model that is really functioning very well, that we are extending to these new operating centers in Luxembourg. It's going to be our private cloud that is being managed and certified by SWIFT for this infrastructure. And we are, as I mentioned earlier, also looking at reducing further the cost for our customers by offering a public cloud solution very soon. So again, the launch of instant access as a service in EU is to target a very low cost of ownership, a total cost of ownership. And we are inviting everyone to come to us. We will do a return on investment assessment to make sure that you can see the value of outsourcing this connectivity part to a service bureau, which is leveraged on all the infrastructure and expertise. The next point in 2024 and even beyond is really to make sure that we have in place the right tools for anti-fraud, including the confirmation of payee access for our customers. We want to make sure that our applications and services can provide the right tools based on AI and machine learning to offer the fraud detection capabilities that are really needed for these instant payment processing, where you have to react in a couple of seconds, like a blink of an eye. Definitely for compliance, it's also very important. We know that the regulation is not imposing sanction screening transaction by transaction, but still our customers are implementing processes that require a transaction by transaction screening for instant payments for all the types of other lists. So we make sure that our products, whether it's compliance, payment processing, anti-fraud, are really instant enabled and can do the processing that is required with the challenges of the SLAs in terms of latency. And finally, last but not least, is DORA. DORA is really looking at the digital transformation, making sure that companies like Eastnets have the right integration tools and frameworks and processes in place to cope with the new challenges of cyber attacks and cyber incidents. We are working on this since a year now, and we will be very pleased to be ready by the time it's going to be mandated in the market to be one of the first companies in Europe to be compliant with DORA. So this is a potentially not so busy agenda on Eastnets, but we are a smaller company too, but still a very passionate people behind all these different projects that we want to achieve in 2024 and 2025. So with this, I would like to thank you on the panel side for the conversation. And I would like to go through the questions and answers that we had here. And the first question that I can see, I will make sure I can publish this. The first question is indeed for indirect participants on target. So the question, I think it's for you, Fabrizio. What to do if today you are an indirect participant on target? Would that model work for instant payments through an indirect agent? Where to find these companies? And is it not better to join directly tips, taking into account all the barriers in terms of complexity that we are lowering down? So what would be your suggestion there?
That's a very important question. I think that what we have tried to do is to put all possible options available for prospect participants. So there are participants that really would for which a lot of sense would make to create a proper account on their own without having to rely on the services of some other participants. But we also wanted to make sure that there is not just one model that should have been provided that would be good for all situations. So we know that there are situations where in banking groups or other situations, it's good enough for some banks to be reachable, but not having an account on their own. Of course, how to make the equation from the infrastructural point of view, from the financial point of view, it's something that every agent in the market has to do for themselves. And in my role, of course, I cannot say one better than the other. I see the benefit of both. For me, it's just important that you look at both with an open mind and see what is really working for you best.
Thank you, Fabrizio. I have another question here. What is the experience with Buna, Xavier? Because you mentioned Buna in your presentation. Can you explain this a little bit more?
Sure. So back in 2021, if I'm not wrong, we conducted a proof of concept with some members of the Buna community, where we managed to settle instantly payments in the local currencies. So that's one proof of concept we conducted with some members of the region. Another that has been done, and which is also quite exciting when looking at this from an instant cross-border point of view, is the fact that, well, we have some payments that have been exchanged between Buna participants and TIPS members. I think it was, well, Banca Intesa San Paolo and Jordan Ali Bank. Intesa San Paolo on the TIP side, Jordan Ali Bank from the Buna side, that managed to transfer money instantly between two currencies. And I think, well, during the experiment, if I'm not wrong, a number of cross currency transactions were settled both in TIPS and Buna instant payment services, where the Intesa San Paolo TIPS account in euro have been debited, and the Jordan Ali Bank Jordanian dinars, so GOD, have been credited in Buna, and the average end-to-end response time for these transactions was approximately 15 seconds. So you see, well, a nice way to see that, okay, we have this OCT in scheme on the one hand side that has started, extremely excited, but well, this other proof of concept demonstrates that, well, there is even, that we can go beyond what is happening with OCT Inst. So quite exciting what's happening, what we did together with members from TIPS and Buna instant payment services. And it's also outlining the fact that you don't need necessarily, well, new requirements and technical infrastructures and significant investments needed to make this happen. You can, well, actually go with instant payments and cross-border and cross-currency quite rapidly.
Okay, and you can reuse the infrastructure, and definitely on service bureaus too, in fact. I have another question here for the reach. So the question is for you, Fabrizio. Is it TIPS enough, or do a bank needs to hold accounts and money on different CSMs? What do you see here?
Oh, that's a very important question. TIPS is sufficient. The reality in the post-pan-European reachability, let's say, measure applied and decided by the Governing Council of the ECB is that every CSM, in a way, is sufficient to access the instant payment and to have full reachability. For TIPS, it's a little bit more special, not just because we are super efficient or whatever, but because for most participants, the pan-European reachability measure imposed the participation in TIPS. So it's good to recall that while being in TIPS for most is a necessity, all the other CSMs that are providing good service, I will certainly never say one single word to criticize them because they are doing really good job. But all the participation in other CSM is on a, let's say, on an optional basis. So especially I would say when the time is of essence, when the financial side is of essence, maybe it's good to look at what is the necessity, especially the necessity from day one, and what can maybe either avoided altogether or at least postponed to when there is a little bit more ease, let's say, of time and of resources and of possibility to work on additional arrangements that are not necessary from moment one.
Understood. Thank you, Fabrizio. I have another question here for Eastnet, so that's on my side. So the question is about what is the pricing model for our shared services. So the pricing model is definitely a subscription model. So what we tend to do is to reduce indeed the barrier of entry to the platform on Eastnet. And so at the end, the customer will pay fees on a yearly basis. And the onboarding itself is limited to the number of days to integrate and set up the infrastructure. So there's no one-time fee as traditionally we have in our other services. But that would, I believe, help the institutions to decide to go for a shared service. So that's on the pricing side. And I have another question on the pricing side. That's for you, Xavier. How do we compare the price, the messaging price for instant payments compared to Fin? Is it the same range or is it different?
It's a good question. I don't have the figures in front of me, so I guess the best would be to check internally. Let me have a look to make sure that I can do the comparison in an effective fashion, and let me revert back to the audience with the proper figures.
Okay, thank you, Xavier. I have another question for you, Fabrizio. So, and potentially as well for you, Xavier. So the volumes of tips today are very limited. So our infrastructures, respective infrastructure, whether tips or SWIFTNet Instant, able to cope with the growing of volumes? Because these are retail business, typically huge volumes. So first on tips, Fabrizio, is the infrastructure for new volumes or growing
If I
volumes?
may, Maria Cristina, I remember working on tips in 2018, 19, when really the volume in tips was limited. Right now, it's still something that I would like to see growing, but remember, it's still the #1 settlement engine for instant payment. So maybe not so limited, but still we want to grow and consider, even now that we are settling already 1 billion payments a year, we are only at about 10% of our settlement capacity. So there is space for growing 10 times, but only 10 times. Are we sure it's enough? No, we are not sure it's enough. And that is why we have agreement internally and arrangements so that we can multiply our capacity by 4. So we can grow by 40 times. And so we are able to settle, if need be, something like 40 billion transactions a year. And this, I think, will be sufficient for quite a while. I would say that if this is a concern for tips, people should not go to any other platform, because you will not find easily anybody with this kind of capacity.
Okay, thank you, Fabrizio. And Xavier, on your side, the SWIFT network, what do you think?
Well, it's also quite reassuring. We'll also be able to cater for this scalability and the extra volume that we expect to see on SWIFTNet Instant and AGI. Actually, one AGI can already process up to 400 transactions per second, and the more AGI instances you install, the more TPS rate will increase and the more volumes of instant payments you will be able to process. So you see, it's also a bit à la carte type of implementation, and the more you expect instant payments to process, the more AGI instances you can deploy to cater also for this resiliency, availability, but also and especially the performance that is truly inherent to what instant payments are.
Mm-hmm. And on Eastnet size, obviously, we work with capacity on demand, basically, so we can always extend our capacity infinitely. Basically, there is no limit for that. So there's no issues. Now, I see another question here that is coming from the audience. What about the possibility for the users to change at any time the SET instant transfer limits? Is there a point still on the table? I think this is much more for you, Fabrizio. We know that there is a limit in the
Yes.
payment.
So
what
that's
is the
a
current
very interesting
situation?
issue. First of all, because so in the scheme of the SET Inst, it is said that 100,000 euros is the limit. However, it is foreseen that either because of a bilateral arrangement or because of a multilateral arrangement, this limit can be raised and can be also infinite. That is why we are giving this possibility to our banks in tips. So banks can choose whether to accept payment only below or up to 100,000 euros, but also possibly to go beyond that limit if that is what they would like to. At the same time, I have to say that there is quite some discussion on the legal side, and please now you don't expect me to be the lawyer, but I can tell you that lawyers are debating on whether the IPR, so the new regulation on instant payment, will de facto impose that also the limit of the SCT Inst will have to be cancelled. I'm not of course qualified to tell you it will or it will not, but I know that there is some discussion. So for this, I would say that the most authoritative source of information will remain the European Payments Council. So we will wait that they work on their SCT scheme new version, and we see where we land on the maximum amount.
All right, thank you, Fabrizio. I think we are reaching now the end of the session. It's 12, almost 30. I would like to thank you, Fabrizio and Xavier, for your contribution to this webinar. It has been very interesting and passionate contribution and preparation. So thank you very much. I would like
Thank
also
you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I would like to thank you also all the audience to attend this webinar. As I mentioned, we will be shortly publish the link of the recording, and also answer all the remaining questions that are coming onto the chat here. And we hope we will have another session very soon on fraud detection and protection. Thank you very much to everyone. Have a very nice day.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.